Welcome to this week's episode of Let's Chat with Derick. I am your host, Derick Fage, and excited to introduce you to my next guest because when I first met him, I really felt he had this spark and I wanted to do an in-depth interview, and I'm glad the opportunity has arisen. And I mentioned that name Spark because that is the name of the company that he has founded. He is the CEO and the owner and founder of Spark Lifecare. I am joined by Bradley Bezan. Brad, welcome to the show. Great to have you here.
Oh, it's so nice to be here. It's great to see you again.
Yeah, great to see you too. We had gotten together just before as you mentioned off camera, the entire world changed. And of course, we're going to get to that. But I wanted to start off a little bit about your history because I know this business that you've begun has really been inspired about your life's journey. And I'd like to start with, maybe taking me back and telling me a little bit about Brad and introducing yourself to our viewers.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a long story. I'll try to keep it short. I grew up in Northern Ontario in a small community about 1,000 kilometers away from Ottawa. I grew up in a place where it was a very small town feel. People were very well connected. They took care of each other. But one thing they didn't really talk about was mental health. I struggled with anxiety when I was in high school. Every opportunity that I could get, I took while I was there to help people, from babysitting at a young age to being a coach to working at camps to running not-for-profit events for my high school. And one of those jobs was a camp that was working with kids from the Children's Aid Society who were separated from each other, siblings from across the province, separated from each other. And they were brought together at a camp called Camp Reunite. And they got to be together for a week. It was the most magical thing. And while I was there, when I was working with these kids, I really found a passion for helping and connecting and seeing, by just being there for them, what kind of difference that could have on them in the long term. So fast forward to that, I realized I want to work with kids. I stopped university in my last year to travel the world to learn from different experts with the hopes of starting my own respite company, and the rest is history. 8 years later, we're hundreds of people between here and Toronto. We've got about 12 directors in the Ottawa region alone, overseeing the different services, and we are now a full-blown healthcare matchmaker. We'll connect you to your community's best therapists, nurses, and caregivers.
Well, I think it's fascinating because, I had that camp experience as well. I was a camp counselor for a couple of years myself and was, certainly grateful that my parents had the means to send me to camp as well. And that experience is so incredible. I wonder, you said how much you loved working with children, and now your business, I would imagine, predominantly are working with seniors. Tell me, when that came into play, that you decided that you would work with, sort of the oldest of our population rather than the youngest.
Great. Yeah, great question. So when I started Spark, the goal, as I mentioned, was to work one-on-one with youth who had, been fallen through the cracks in the community. And my approach to working with them was not to see their label or their diagnosis or their disability, and then work from there. What we did was we really just wanted to get to know these people. And so that was the approach from day one when we started our program, was get to know the person first, see them as a human being with needs and wants and dreams, and then focus on the obstacles later. And when we realized that, I started growing on the kids program. I had people from the other fields, from nursing and therapy and seniors, and they said, Brad, this isn't something that is unique to the kids world. This approach, this people-centered approach, should be applied to all healthcare. And so I had these moments, and I'm so glad I said yes, where these community leaders from different areas said to me, can we join Spark, take this approach and apply it to these different populations? And that's really where Spark became Spark. I would have been a one-man show providing respite and working with some of our community's vulnerable teenagers. But that is why now we see people for people. We work with people from 2 years old to 102 years old.
Brad, take me back again because you mentioned even at a young age you wanted to help people, you wanted to help care for people, the more vulnerable. What was family like? Life was your family part of the community volunteering? Was there sort of a philanthropic side to your family? Was that part of the inspiration? What really was the big part of the inspiration?
So 150% for me. My dad, coming from a small community, we generationally have dealt with mental illness in my family, from myself to my dad to his dad, and it was something that the community really didn't talk about. Small, you're just expected to go to work, you come home, you take care of it yourself, and you struggle in isolation. There are no groups really for people to get together and talk with each other. So I watched my dad struggle in silence. However, the biggest gift he gave us during his struggles, and he passed away. He lost his battle with mental illness, which is part of my inspiration to keep this going. But the best gift my father ever gave me was he talked to us about mental health and mental illness, and part of that was he would be so proud. I mean, we've got so far to go, but he would be so proud to see how we talk about these things now as a community, as a country. How mental illness is important and connecting and talking about it. But so he passed away due to complications with alcoholism, and that really, like, growing up was the hardest thing to see. That life had to be this working really hard, providing for your family. You could be a wonderful person and pillar of the community, and yet the community was there, but they weren't. You struggled by yourself, and so that's part of my main goal, is to talk about things, to be open about things, and to connect people and create a community where you can talk about these things and help each other.
And I think you do that with your staff too, Brad. I think that's what makes what you've put in place. And if I remember correctly, you call it the Spark Campus, and that's a really important part for you to make sure that the people that you're working with, that are working for you, are they're having those conversations. Tell me a little bit about the importance of that with your employees.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the world of community care, therapy, and et cetera, is a very isolating world. People are on their own. There's nobody around. You're working with clients and you're dealing with very, very complex, tough issues. And then you go home and you've got your own issues that you have to deal with. So it's funny. It's such a great segue. That's why you're such a great interviewer. But the sense of community that I wanted and I wished my dad would have had up north is what I'm trying to create here with my team of caregivers and community partners in Ottawa. So part of it is that, listen, we are doing tough work. We are most likely, and we'll get into this later, I'm assuming, they're underpaid, they're undervalued by the community. For the most part, COVID made that even worse. And yet we're doing some of the most important work, and yet these people are isolated, they're doing all of this, and it's tough. So we wanted to create a community where people can feel connected, where people can talk about things outside of work, where they can get together for, we have micro groups, we have different clubs, whether it's from video games to craft beer to they had a Disney movie night last week with our hundreds of people, and so we're trying to connect people so that beyond just the day-to-day work that they're doing, that they can see value in relationships that they have with their colleagues, and so they can connect and have resources to help them with the tough work that they're doing.
Yeah, Brad, it's important that I think we get that message across because I know we're finally calling frontline workers heroes. We're using that terminology, but I don't think there's a full understanding of what this pandemic has been like for frontline workers because, as you said, they're looking after the most vulnerable. So what they find themselves in, they're sort of many of them working kind of one-on-one. It's just themselves and the client, and then they go home and to protect themselves, to protect their family, their friends, and of course their patients, they have to isolate themselves. They've been isolating themselves for an entire year. Tell me a little bit about that and the effect it's had on some of your colleagues.
Yeah, I mean, you can do absolutely everything you think you can do for your colleagues during a time like this, and it still will never be enough because these people truly are heroes. I mean, you hear of people in Ottawa, and this is part of our healthcare hero campaign that we've just launched in the last couple of weeks, which we could talk about a bit. These are people, who are, like we mentioned, making close to nothing. And I mean, you see in the news sometimes they're working all day helping us. And then they're going to sleep in shelters because they can't afford a roof over their heads. Right? They're saving lives day by day, and then they're getting home and their power is off. Or so these PSWs and these caregivers, it's incredible what they've done through COVID for us. They've really sacrificed and put their lives on the line for us to make sure that we can continue to be healthy, we can continue to do the things that we do at their expense, and that's something that I think as a community we need to be cognizant of, appreciative of, and work together to create a new system for them where they are more appreciated than they are now.
You mentioned the Healthcare Hero campaign and the initiative, and that's definitely something I wanted to talk about. Tell me where this idea came from, and explain the campaign.
Absolutely. So Spark is a social enterprise. What that means is we value, at the end of the year, we don't base our success on profits. We base them off of lives changed and the impact that we've had for our community. And so since 2012, we've reinvested every single profit that we've had back into our caregivers, our systems, our community, our clients. And that's what's helped us grow to where we are today. At the end of this year during COVID, we, unlike many other small businesses that I've been hearing stories, which makes me so sad to hear the struggles that they're having. It's been a time where we've been needed and we've stepped up, and so we actually grew during COVID. We've doubled in size during this period, and so at the end of the year, even after reinvesting everything, and we gave all of our caregivers bonuses at the Christmas party, we had all kinds of initiatives where we took care of our people throughout the year. We actually still had a profit when the accountants told me at the end of the year. And I thought to myself, that day I was watching the news, and that was the story on the news was PSW working 16 hours a day has to sleep in a shelter, a women's shelter, at the end of the day because she can't afford housing in Ottawa. And this is I mean, we're talking about Canada. This is I was
Yeah.
just completely appalled. And not only that, during the same period of time, I was hearing about our public figures in government and in the business world that were telling us to stay home, and yet behind closed doors, they were traveling abroad. And so during this time when public trust and sentiment was low, I said to myself, look, we're not all like that. These are small. In every population, there are some people who make good decisions and some who make bad. And so I spoke to the team and I said, you know what? Even though we've done what we could within Spark, it's also our responsible as a community partner and neighbor to help the other people outside of our organization. I mean, the ones that we have no benefit from helping. A lot of businesses will do things because there's a return coming back to them at the end of the day. So we said, you know what?
Right.
Why don't we change a life? Why don't we change one of these people's lives and take the profits that we have at the end of the day, at the end of the year, and give it to them? Not something big enough to really change, not just a small $50 gift certificate to Tim Hortons. I mean, these are all great gestures,
Yeah.
but something that will have a real impact on their lives. So we decided to take $10,000. We created a campaign with our PR agency. So we're looking for a healthcare hero in Ontario, anywhere, anyone who's helped from nursing to therapy to a caregiver who's gone above and beyond without the credit that they deserve, and we're going to be giving them $10,000.
Oh, that's just amazing. Well, and you've touched on the pandemic, and I wanted to talk specifically about that, and maybe perhaps what you and your team have learned during this pandemic. What's one of the biggest things you've learned, Brad?
We've learned about the importance of each other. We've learned about good times and bad, that if we are going through something as a community, we're more connected than we thought we ever were before. We learned that during being disconnected, which is interesting, right? That if we're
Yeah.
going to be successful as a community, as a population, that we need to work together. Community is important. I think we need to get back to our roots there of making sure that during times like this, and unfortunately, I hope it is, but I don't think it'll be the last pandemic we see in our lifetimes or struggles. So let's really make sure that we have an ecosystem, a family, a community around each of us, and so that we can lean on them during the good and the bad.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are talking about this sense of maybe a reset for people. Brad, do you get the feeling that that might stick? That people are thinking in those terms? I just look around my own neighborhood throughout this entire pandemic. I'll be honest with you. We had barely seen our neighbors, and then a pandemic hits, and I go back to last March of 2020, and all of a sudden everybody's outside. They're buying bicycles, they're buying canoes and kayaks. I happen to live across the river, and they're going across and enjoying nature more. Do you think this is going to stick? I think that's what the hope is. Or do you think we'll go back into our regular routines? Or has this been big enough that you have a belief that no, I think there is a reset here, and I think most people are going to change some things in their life?
I think that look, we're creatures of habit, right? And so what we've learned, we've had a period where it was that we were able to be aware that, oh man, these things that are most important to our health and our well-being, they don't cost anything. To get outside, to go to rent a kayak, or to go for a walk or a hike, or to go let our dogs run at the park with our neighbors we haven't met before, right? These are the things that make us happiest and are best for us. So my hope is that we got that shock. We learned that that was important. Now it's up to all of us to take what we've learned this past year and really implement it for the future. I'm worried a bit that, as time goes on, that might fade a little bit and we might forget. But I do believe in us as a population. And for the people who did realize over the last year that this is so important and this has been great, use that. Make it a part of your daily life to make sure, like, hey, this is what I learned from this tough situation. I'm going to make sure that this is implemented, for the next decade.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Is it going to stick and implement that? So, what have we've talked about many of the things that you've learned as as a team, as a group, and of course as an individual. What do you think is going to stick for Spark as far as how you're looking after your clients? Everybody's had to. Some people use the word pivot. A friend of mine, Catherine Landry, said, no, I actually prefer the word innovate because that's what entrepreneurs do. So what have you done? What innovations have you come up with that you think are going to stick?
Yeah, so luckily, Spark has always been a very innovative company to begin with. We are constantly. I mean, we have close to 30 softwares that we use at Spark, which are interconnected and integrated, where the technology that empowers caregiving is just as important as the person that shows up that day. So families have full access to their schedules, their documents that they need, that the information about their caregivers. Like, this is a central hub that they have and they can communicate on. Same with our caregivers. We've got incredible softwares there. So when the pandemic hit and a lot of businesses were scrambling to innovate, Spark was ready. I don't want to say unfortunately, but we saw the future, not the pandemic portion, but we saw how important technology was going to be, and we implemented that since day one. Now, there's a lot of talk out there, and I'm seeing it already. Some of our colleagues in the business world going to full remote work, and getting away from their offices. You mean office lease rentals are going to be at an all-time high this year. I don't agree that is for the future. There will always be a place for the water cooler chat. And I think what we're going to have is a hybrid between people working from home, but also people needing the technology, the flexibility, and freedom to work from home, to have to have what they need so that they can do their jobs while also having access to a space where they can go in and meet, talk around the water cooler. And these are where these great ideas come up, right?
Yeah, and I agree with you because I think there's been a lot of chat, in particular in media, about all the benefits of working from home, and there are many benefits. There's no doubt in my mind about that. But I think we forget about, first of all, what you just described, that cooler chat. The socializing, how important it can be. Sometimes, the colleagues that we see at the office are perhaps the only people that we see during the day, and that human interaction connection is incredibly important. It fills our spirit. We need it. And then the other side of it is the coffee shop, the local coffee shop and sandwich shop and so forth, that rely on us going to
Right.
those office spaces, right? To make we forget, I think, a little bit about the trickle down effect. I wonder if you've sort of seen that. You're in a great little neighborhood there. Have you spoken to other businesses? What is the feeling you're getting from other businesses in your community?
Yeah, I am such a believer in small business and keeping those people alive this year. I mean, I have no connection to the restaurant industry, excuse me, or some of these small shops that are around our office on Florence, but I love them. And I've been trying to, when I could, go in to support them as much as humanly possible, because a world without them, it is sad. I mean, I can't imagine them not being part of the ecosystem like you talked about. If I want to have, hey, Derick, you want to have coffee? I mean, not being able to do that at the coffee shop around the block is not something that I want to do. And then that office downtown becomes irrelevant at that point, because it's such an important part of being down and working downtown. So, I mean, I was having breakfast when things reopened. I believe it was a couple months ago at my favorite diner around the corner there, and I was the only person in there. And I walked in, and the chef was looking out the window, and the server came to me, and I said, "How are you guys doing?" And she said to me, "I don't know how long we'll be able to do this for." And it broke my
Yeah.
heart, because not only is it a tough situation for them, but where is the community right now? I mean, there are safe protocols. We're hearing about people gathering at people's houses, and I'm saying follow every public health protocol. Trust me, Dr. Etches, I'm on board. But what I'm saying is there's a safe way to support these people, and they need help, and they need it now. And so whether it's takeout, whether it's ordering a coffee and leaving them $5 or $10 tip, just do your part to keep these places alive. Because I can guarantee you, Derick, if these places close and things open up again and we're at the office, the first thing people are going to complain about is, geez, there's nothing. Where do we go for coffee now? And this is on us as
Yeah.
a community, right?
Yeah, agreed, Brad. I want to go back to the matchmaking side of things with Spark Lifecare, because you sort of described it as you being a matchmaker for those that need your services. So tell me how you work with your clients in order to find that perfect match. Walk me through the process.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, Spark, when we explain what we do outside of our field, has been one of the most challenging things, because it's such a different type of business model. So, people have, one time I was on the West Coast at a conference, and somebody looked at me and said, basically like Match.com for healthcare. And I said, you know what? That's a great comparison. That's very good. I'm going to use that. So, heaven forbid, Derick, you were on your way home or out into the community, and you were to be in a car accident. You would be coming out of the hospital. Hopefully everything is as good as could be, but you're going to need some help at home. So what Spark does is the lawyers will bring us in right away, and every single client of ours gets a care partner. It's a free service. It's someone who will help them advocate, who will allow them to help them with scheduling, who will bring in other service providers as needed. This is completely free, no matter what service you get with Spark. So this is a real extension of what you're looking for in getting your help and your recovery. And so that person will go in and say, okay, Derick, we'll empathize with the situation. We'll try to understand what you're looking for. What kind of life were you living prior to the accident? Where do you want to be? What are the things that you didn't have before that you'd like to do? Getting to know you as a person. What are your interests? I could see you're a Sens fan. That's really important, right? Like, let's work on those
Right.
passions and those interests. And then they'll go out and they'll build a team of people with those services who shows passions, whether it's language, food, culture, poor taste in hockey teams. Sorry, I had to get that in there. We will find the
Nice.
people who will help you in that way, and so it's more. It's not the competition out there. You got to be happy with who shows up. It's someone different every day. You don't know when they're coming. Who do I call if they're not showing up? It's not like that here. It's the same person all the time as much as possible, and gives you time to work on those things and really get to know them, right? Because for me to be pushed, I need to trust the person that's pushing me in my rehab, and I
Right.
think it's like that, right? You need to respect them, and so that's how it would work.
Yeah, you know what? It actually, even beyond, Match.com, it reminds me of how they connect big brothers and big sisters.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
We've been actually lots of people have said so. Yeah, it's similar to that. The difference is which is a wonderful program out there. I recommend anybody who is looking for an awesome volunteer opportunity to connect with the Big Brothers Big Sisters. It's such a valuable resource in our community. For us, the difference is. Our team will be part of an interdisciplinary team. So oftentimes the
Right.
worker will be working alongside an applied behavior therapist or an occupational therapist, and they're also paid. So that is one of the big differences. The people that work for us are more career oriented. This is a job for them, whereas Big Brothers Big
Hmm.
Sisters, you're in university and you're looking for volunteer opportunity. It's a wonderful way to get your hours.
I will say that that relationship, and Brad, I've seen it firsthand. That relationship is so important, and the way that you do the matchmaking is, I've never seen it in another business, especially in your industry, where all of a sudden these are new members of the family. This isn't somebody just coming in to do a job. They become members of the family. It's really beautiful to experience. So hats off to you and what you and your team have done. And obviously, you've had some incredible growth, and didn't necessarily want to see it happen in the manner it has. But I love the fact that you've got the healthcare hero giveaway. So if people want to find out more information about that and nominate somebody, what's the best place to go?
Absolutely. So this is such nice comments, especially coming from you, someone I respect so much. They can go. Our Healthcare Hero campaign is still going on. They can go to our website or any of our social media accounts at Spark Cares on Instagram or Facebook. It will be all over there. Our social media team is having a lot of fun with it. If you go to our website, you'll see a link to Healthcare Heroes at the footer of our page, as well as a place to nominate somebody. I really recommend that people go in, and even if you're not sure if somebody would qualify, right? Whether it's somebody helping my family, it would be a great place to start. Put the nomination out there. You never know.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining me, Brad.